Hello, MVP Sports Nation. Ricky Widmer here. Got a special guest for you guys I'm going to say this wrong, Chase. Is it Chase Ruttig?
Yeah,
Ruttig?
Chase Ruttig.
And from Just Blog Baby, Raiders blog on fansided.com, the network, we're going to be talking a little bit of Oakland Raiders in our entire preview leading up to the NFL season that we all cannot wait for. I'm going to get right into it, Chase. Your coach, Dennis Allen, some would say should be on the hot seat in year 3 after 2 4-12 seasons. As a Raider fan, do you think Allen should be on the hot seat?
This is a tough question because obviously as a fan, you want to see your team win every year. That's what most people in the Raider Nation try to do. I try to mostly remove myself as I like to see the Oakland Raiders win. I like to see them do well. But from an analyst of the National Football League and from following the Raiders, I wasn't around for Dennis Allen's first season as editor of Just Blog Baby, but editing the blog and being the chief writer of them and following them all season. What do you really expect from a team that was doing a real NBA type of strategy of deconstructing all of the salary cap and then going from that into a situation where this year they've constructed the team? I feel that Dennis Allen has had a real poor deck when it comes to his coaching career as an NFL head coach. Obviously, these two teams have been gutted. He hasn't had the advantage that Hugh Jackson and Tom Cable had, where Al Davis was spending near over the cap, bringing in whoever he could. The Oakland Raiders just couldn't get the talent. No one really wanted to come to Oakland since 2002 when they went to the Super Bowl. It's hard to say. It's hard to criticize a guy who is one of the greatest football minds of all time in Al Davis, but it's a situation where the Oakland Raiders were mortgaging their future on trying to make the playoffs every year. That's why they went 8-8. It was almost impossible for the Oakland Raiders to finish with less than 6 wins with Tom Cable and Hugh Jackson, because shame on you if you're going to be a team that's spending that much money and not getting near the cap. Reggie McKenzie gets brought in. Dennis Allen gets brought in. They got the place. This is a real NBA situation when you see teams who have been trying to break down the rosters and salary cap to bring in the talent. That's what really happened. And now Dennis Allen is in this situation. Not only does he have 2 4-12 seasons because there was nobody on the team in those 2 years, and the team that was doing well at the start of the year last year got decimated by injuries to guys like Tyvon Branch and et cetera, et cetera. Terrible offensive line last year. Jared Bellier was out until Thanksgiving. And then now, hardest schedule in the National Football League, playing in the NFC West and the 3 teams in the AFC West that made the playoffs last year. It's a realistic thing that Dennis Allen, come the end of the season, could be fired if he only wins 4 games again. But to say he should be on the hot seat, nah, I really don't like it. I think Dennis Allen, it's difficult. If you have looked at the challenges Dennis Allen has faced, and you can say there's somebody else the Oakland Raiders could get who do a better job. I know the Oakland Raiders fans have a lot of fantasies about John Gruden, but is John Gruden coming? Is a Bill Belichick coming to the Oakland Raiders? Probably not. Those coaches who are commentating on CBS and NBC and ESPN every Sunday only want to come back to a situation where they're going to want to win. And Dennis Allen is here trying to rebuild the team, and to fire him 3 years on his 4-year contract after deconstructing a team for 2 of those years based on a bad season this year again, I don't know if you can really do that without saying that just life's not fair and you're going to get fired. I just think Dennis Allen really deserves that year 4 no matter what happens.
Well, first off, totally off the Raiders for a second. You say that after 3 years it's not fair to fire him. I just think of what the Browns just did, firing Chud after 1 season with a terrible organization.
We all know. You can make fun of the Oakland Raiders all you want. The Oakland Raiders are the Cleveland Browns, are the new Oakland Raiders. Just look at all the things. Josh Gordon smokes tons of weed. Isn't that an old Oakland Raider thing? They fire people. They draft quarterbacks like Johnny Manziel have personality issues. I think the Cleveland Browns are the new Oakland Raiders. I think with a guy like general manager Reggie McKenzie, who did that Green Bay type of mind, I think Reggie McKenzie will go to bat for Dennis Allen after year 3. I understand the NFL is a happy-go-lucky firing community, but in terms of kind of a football nerd type of philosophy, if you're going to look at everything and all things considered, Dennis Allen year 4 seems like a deserved thing, as long as a situation where he doesn't have the team turn on him or the team doesn't lose like last year where they lost every game down the stretch.
Mhm.
Those are situations where, the coach is really going to be put on the hot seat. But if the Raiders perform well in a lot of games where if the Raiders win any of the games they play against the AFC West, those are all considered huge victories. Then they have the chance to beat Arizona, who has Carson Palmer and Jared Veldheer, two players they really don't like. I know I might be skipping ahead in this by addressing the schedule. But with Dennis Allen, it's a situation where every single game, except for a couple games against the mediocre opponents like Buffalo and Cleveland, these wins, if Dennis Allen gets wins this season, they're going to be signature wins that people are going to be like, whoa, that is a big win. Seattle, San Francisco, New England. I see the chance if Dennis Allen gets a couple of those games wins. You just got to give him the credit for getting those wins. This is the toughest schedule in the league. And all things considered, if I was the owner and general manager of the Oakland Raiders, I would be considering this year another rebuilding year, even though with any other schedule, you could see the Raiders being a crapshoot wildcard team if they had an easier schedule when they could stay in the hunt until December.
Well, let me throw this out, and I'm jumping ahead as well. Like with Dennis Allen, I feel like the Raiders, they had not a, and I said this in the Seahawks preview, it's not a sexy draft. I mean, yeah, Khalil Mack, Derek Carr, to me, those are sexy picks, but anything after that, it's, and I believe Mel Kiper says it perfectly when he says sensible draft for the Raiders. Then you add pieces like Schaub, who I know there's a lot of Schaub haters for what he did in Houston, but then you add MJD. If MJD, McFadden can stay healthy, can this Raiders team be, and we've said on the podcast, can they be a 7-win team?
Yeah, I honestly see, I know the Vegas thing has the Raiders, if they get 5 wins, they're going to make money. Mm-hmm. So the odds makers who know a lot more than we do probably maybe will think that's a little crazy. But you also got to factor in, guys, Justin Tuck, I understand a lot of people will hate on the Justin Tuck move. Justin Tuck, great player. Who hasn't watched Justin Tuck when he wants to win and been like, I probably don't want Justin Tuck on my team. You're lying to yourself. Justin Tuck, great guy, has a lot to prove. He felt the New York Giants lowballed him.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Tuck, and when you also got to factor in this thing, you got Charles Woodson. Charles Woodson, if you follow what Charles Woodson's been saying since coming back to Oakland, he is saying he pretty much doesn't want to retire until the Raiders make the playoffs. When you got a guy like that motivating people, the Oakland Raiders have a pretty good defense.
How the Raiders have gone, though, that could take a while. 11 years so far since a
I know.
playoff appearance.
Like, I might play next year. The Raiders haven't made the playoffs in a decade. You might be wanting to find some undetectable steroids so you can back to 50. But, if they weren't playing this hard schedule, what separates the Raiders from the Chargers other than Phillip Rivers? That's the question. The Raiders have a really underrated defense now. And when you talk about the unsexy draft, I know big boys aren't sexy. No one will say a big boy is as sexy as someone who's a wide receiver. But Gabe Jackson in the 3rd round, that's pretty sexy to me. I love Big Gabe. He's a big boy. Big guy from Mississippi State. Tony Sperano's the offensive line coach, you got to remember. And I think Gabe Jackson, a guy I graded as a 2nd-round talent, I thought he could have even went in the 1st round if he played in a different team. Playing in the SEC and looking like that big of a man among boys says something to me. And Gabe Jackson for 4 seasons was a road grader at Mississippi State. Give him a Tony Sperano type of role where he's a rookie and he's going to come in and then he's going to bang with people. I think in a run-blocking only schemes, Gabe Jackson can come in and produce right away. And a lot of Raiders moves this offseason weren't sexy, I'll admit. But Donald Penn, Pro Football Focus rates Donald Penn pretty highly. And you got Kevin Booth from the Giants who came in, Austin Howard. All of these guys are sexy people, but they're big people. The Raiders are building this team on depth. Last year they had no depth, and they were somewhat competitive until the wheels fell off. They managed to be somewhat competitive with Terrell Pryor for 6 weeks of the season. Terrell Pryor is terrible.
Well,
Matt Schaub is not terrible.
And that's the thing I kind of think of, and I'm going to get to Matt Schaub right here. by throwing in Derek Carr into the mix. First off, when you saw Derek Carr get drafted to the Raiders, I know myself, I was like in shock because I thought the Cardinals were going to take him in the first round. Do you think Carr is going to be a sit all season, or if Schaub has trouble later in the season, does Carr come in and take the job from him going into 2015?
I'm sorry, I'm going to bore you guys with this answer. Matt Schaub is starting the whole season.
The whole season?
They took his contract, is what you need to remember. They took Matt Schaub's contract from Houston, readjusted it a bit, but they're paying him a decent amount of money. They committed a pick. Matt Schaub, yes, I'll say get this out of the way. Matt Schaub, terrible year last year. Look at Matt Schaub's stats every year before that. Great. They're great stats. I understand you can call me a box score Charlie by saying that, but why do you hate Matt Schaub? I understand people are always like, oh, I watch his tape and he's terrible. But are you watching Matt Schaub's tape with the thought, oh, this is a guy who led the Texans to the AFC playoffs. This is a guy who's thrown for over 4,000 yards plenty of times in the National Football League. Or are you looking at it as this is the guy who threw all those pick sixes, so he must be terrible?
Well,
there's only so many good quarterbacks in the National Football League. Only so many of those are elite. The Oakland Raiders, I feel, picked a guy who, yeah, you're going to have a junk quarterback this season, but do you want to throw Derek Carr to the Wolves? Do you want Derek Carr playing the San Francisco 49ers, the Seahawks, and the New England Patriots, and the Denver Broncos, and the Kansas City Chiefs? No. I just don't want to do it. Sit him for a year. Matt McGloin last year showed something. You can keep Derek Carr. Keeping three quarterbacks is tough. And that's a reason why this scenario where you can see Derek Carr playing can be played out. But if they keep three quarterbacks, it's going to be 1, Matt Schaub, 2, Matt McGloin, and big old 3, trois for my French-Canadian friends.
So you're not even putting Derek Carr in the top 3?
He's going to be the third quarterback. If they
the third. Okay.
He's not going to play. Reggie McKenzie's done this before. He's been in the front office with Aaron Rodgers. This isn't a crazy talk. This is talk that Reggie McKenzie and Dennis Allen have sat down and discussed all of this stuff before the draft and have said, if they draft someone, they're not going to start him. And what do you say about that? You got to take their word for it and then look at the hard schedule. Do you want to put a guy in Derek Carr who is a great quarterback? I think Derek Carr is the franchise quarterback in the future, but I think that's a question for 2015 and not 2014. It's boring. It's not fun to say because I love Derek Carr. Derek Carr puts up numbers. He's got a golden arm. I think Derek Carr is going to show a lot of those idiots who said, oh, he's David Carr's brother and brought in David Carr's bad deck that he got, and prove a lot of people wrong in the future. Yep. That future is in 2014. I think it's best for him as a development. He's not going to get that. Remember what happened with his brother, David Carr? David Carr had to play with the Texans with no offensive line and a hard schedule all the time. His mechanics got ruined, and a guy who was a once promising quarterback ended up being called a bust because of the bad deck he was dealt. The Oakland Raiders can do the Aaron Rodgers route. Throw Matt Schaub, a guy who's been proven in there for a year, and a season where it's pretty much anything's profit for the Raiders if they do well. They personally should know that if they make the playoffs, it would be the greatest miracle of all time with the schedule and everything that's happened the last decade. So risking stuff that would be detrimental for Derek Carr's development just to excite the fans and as well as to get him some game experience. I don't know if that game experience is really beneficial if the Raiders struggle with Matt Schaub and are no longer in a situation where they have positive momentum and they're playing such difficult opponents. I would save Derek Carr.
Well, I'm going to throw Mark here from MVP Sports under the bus because his biggest criticism of Schaub has been pick six machine. Pick six machine, pick six machine. But I want to change the focus, go to the defense a little bit. What position on the defense, line, linebacker, secondary, do you think is going to be most important focus on coming into the season? Because me being in Chicago, I just think of you lost Lamar Houston to my, even though I'm a Vikings fan, my hometown technically, Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I'm going to say sorry to the city of Chicago. But I think Lamar Houston will look better in a situation where he doesn't think he's a defensive end. He thinks he's a dominant defensive end pass rusher. He didn't do much for the Oakland Raiders last season. He's a great player. I wish Lamar Houston the best, but the Oakland Raiders pass rush is going to be way better next season without Lamar Houston. Justin Tuck, yes, you can say he was playing for a contract last season. Justin Tuck's been working pretty hard. And this is going to be, once again, like I said, they have a real veteran with something to prove thing going on, too, because they brought in Lamar Woodley for the other end. And then when you got guys like second-year player C.O. Moore out of UConn, C.O. Moore, great underrated rookie last season. I like C.O. Moore's game. And you bring in Khalil Mack into the mix. That's some decent pass rush. You got some decent pass rush. Last year they had no pass rush. And I think the Raiders have really built something where they're going to be a lot of decent. And there's nothing wrong with being a lot of decent. Teams have made the playoffs based on a lot of decent. There was a lot of decent on the Seattle Seahawks. They have the most decent of every team. And the Oakland Raiders right now, last year they only had some decent. Now they have a decent little mix of players in every position. And I think without Lamar Houston, yeah, it sucks. Same with Jared Veldheer. They didn't want to come back to the Oakland Raiders. Reggie McKenzie gave them fair deals. He's came out and said he's giving them fair offers. They wanted to go to teams they thought they could win with. Good for them. I think the Oakland Raiders have gone better without both those players in those positions. They've really bolstered both their offensive line and pass rush without those two. And I think they're going to be better without those two players. And it's crazy to say, but it's not really crazy when you look at the basic math. The Oakland Raiders had almost over $60 million of dead cap last year. All of that cap money went to new players. The NFL, I understand if you really want to be a contender, you need superstar players in certain positions. The Oakland Raiders are a long way from having them. But the Oakland Raiders can be competitive because they have the decent players in all positions that you need to be a good team. But next step is getting the superstars.
Well, and I'm looking at the schedule right now, and the first thing I think of, because in the Seahawks preview, me and Mitch even talked about this because the Seahawks are in a similar boat that the Raiders are in. Week 5 bye. It's a very early bye. I'm going to throw out this situation. Let's say the Raiders shock, and I wouldn't think it's a shock, but they beat the Jets. Then they beat the Texans. They beat the Dolphins. Their only loss in the first 4 games is to the Patriots. How excited should Raider Nation feel if the Raiders are 3-1 going into their Week 5 bye?
I'm not going to lie. I've thought about that scenario a couple of times. That is the scenario everyone wants with the Oakland Raiders. Who wouldn't want them to be 3-1 after those games? That is a realistic thing. I understand the Texans are going to be a decent better, but there's nothing to say a team that beat the Texans last year when the Texans had a terrible quarterback couldn't beat the Texans again this season. At home, in their home open.
Well, the only wild card with Houston is they're going to have a healthy Foster back and what he can do.
Yeah, that's the wild card, but that's a running back. I understand that. I'm not saying the Oakland Raiders will be 3-1 at that point, but if you're going to be talking about the Oakland Raiders contending for an AFC wild card, it's got to be 3-1. I understand. I understand they're not going to make the playoffs. I know they're not going to make the playoffs. I would almost sit here and guarantee to everyone in Oakland Raider Nation that you're not going to make the playoffs, but I personally don't want everyone to be mad at me before the season even starts. So I'll say there's a chance. But if they go 3-1, that chance is a reality. They could make the playoffs if they went 3-1 in that stretch. And I think, like you said, that's the only logical position. But the Oakland Raiders season does come down on 2 games, and those are the first 2 games of the season. You've got a veteran team who are motivated to prove people wrong. You've got a team that plays hard on defense. Jason Tarver and Dennis Allen have got the Oakland Raiders to play hard before. They looked decent at the start of last season with Terrell Pryor. Things fell off. The division was too good last season, realistically, for the Oakland Raiders. Right now, the Chiefs are worse. The Kansas City Chiefs are way worse than they were last year.
And that's actually one thing that I was going to ask you is, with the Chiefs being in the same division as the Raiders, do you think we see as fire-powered team from the Chiefs that we saw last season, or Are they going to be a little less, and the Raiders can maybe steal a game from KC?
They're going to be more Andy Reid and less defense. That is what it is looking like. They're going to be far more of an Andy Reid, let's gamble or all on offense team. And what are the Oakland Raiders going to be this season? Defense. The Denver Broncos are always going to have a better defense than the Kansas City Chiefs offense is going to be because they have weapons. They're going to do a lot of stuff with trying to get Dwayne Bowe, Jamal Charles, and their new draft pick, the Black Mamba, from Oregon over. And they're going to try to mix all those players in to have a Andy Reid team. It's going to be a lot of Andy Reid football for the Chiefs next year. Is that better? We saw what Andy Reid football did in the AFC wildcard game. You can blame injuries and fading down the stretch. The Chiefs put up a lot of points. The Chiefs didn't win the football game. I think the Chiefs are going to be, because of the forced, they lost a lot of talent, and they're going to continue to lose talent if they're going to keep Alex Smith. I think that's a big reason why the Kansas City Chiefs have Chase Daniels and Aaron Murray on the team now. It seems, leading up to the year for the Kansas City Chiefs, with the distraction of Alex Smith and with all of those departures, the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Diego Chargers and the Oakland Raiders are a lot closer together than last year, when it was firmly Denver and then Kansas City, and then San Diego was clearly above the Raiders, obviously. It's not going to be a 1-2 type of situation anymore. It's going to be more of a 2-3-4 in the AFC West. And while I think the Kansas City Chiefs are the most likely team in the division to make the playoffs, if you think the Chiefs are going to do better than they did last year, I just don't see it. A lot of teams also got better too, and the Chiefs got worse, and that team was an AFC wildcard team that lost. So expecting them to go farther in 2014 would be ill-advised at this point.
And one of the last questions I'll ask you, because on the Onside Kick podcast that we do here at MVP Sports, we talked about the Raiders and how many wins they could get with MJD, McFadden staying healthy, Schaub, the defense, and Mark and Dave threw out 7-9, and Dave even made the joke that if Oakland goes 7-9, that Oakland should have a parade, like they just won the Super Bowl. How many wins are you predicting the Raiders to get in 2014?
Like I said, we got to do this in two different scenarios. The scenario, they win a couple games early, 7-9, plan the parade, get it going from Alameda all the way down to the pitch. Let's do it. If they win a couple early games, this team has a lot of veteran players who are motivated and want to win. They have proven. Dennis Allen, you can joke all I want. I follow the Oakland Raiders more than most people. They're building something decent. It's not great. I'm going to say the Oakland Raiders won't make the playoffs. But if we're going to talk Vegas line, and I like to dabble a little bit, I'll admit this, I'll be on the over for the wins. So you're going to say over 5. 6 or 7's not crazy. But if the Oakland Raiders start 3-1, give them 8. If they don't start 3-1, give them 6. Those are my two picks. I don't see the Oakland Raiders having another bad season. These are a lot of players who not only I understand you can criticize the old Al Davis thing and the Raiders having old players. Look at up and down how many motivated people on the Oakland Raiders there are right now. Matt Schaub's going to be super motivated. We already know everyone likes making fun of him. Then you've got Maurice Jones-Drew, very motivated. He had that Liz Frank injury. Nobody wanted to give him money. He's playing extremely on the cheap. Darren McFadden, same reason. If you can get 10 games out of Darren McFadden and 15 or 14 out of Maurice Jones-Drew, that's pretty good. And then on the defense, we've got Lamar Woodley, Justin Tuck, etc., Charles Woodson type of players who are motivated. Guys who came from the 49ers into the team in the secondary, and Terrell Brown and Carlos Rogers. They play the 49ers this year. They play a lot of great teams that you're going to get up for every time. And the Oakland Raiders, if they can sneak in a couple of those dirty underdog wins you see so many times in the NFL, who knows? But it is really predicated, like you've said, on before the Week 5 bye. They have winnable games. Unfortunately, those are a lot of the only winnable games they have on the schedule. So they got to win first importantly, I'm saying if they don't win week 1, you can start being negative about the Oakland Raiders. And it's that serious. If they can beat the Jets in week 1 and grab their home opener win, you've got something rolling. If they don't do that, people are going to be saying the Oakland Raiders are going to finish with 5-4 wins again, and I'll have no problem with saying that. But if you can get to 3-1, you can sneak a couple of wins in the division, which is realistic, like I said, with the Chiefs and the Chargers. They beat the Chargers last year, and mix in the fact they still got to play Cleveland and Buffalo. The Oakland Raiders can scrape in enough wins down the stretch. It's football. Anything can happen. But if we're going to be honest, like you said, 7-9 would be almost parade-inducing in Oakland based on how tough the people are going to play.
Well, that's going to do it for this video. I want to thank Chase for sitting down and joining me because your Raider knowledge is way more extensive than mine is. Mine would have been 3 minutes, and I would have said that Schaub wasn't a good quarterback. So I want to thank you for joining me and giving Raider Nation a proper preview.
Yeah, no problem. I think, and I honestly, if you don't know a lot about a team like the Oakland Raiders, don't blame yourself. It's a small market team. They haven't won a lot, and I hope people had a little bit more knowledge, and you can always visit us on justblogbaby.com, part of Fansideds Network. We have Raider news every day, which might sound crazy to sound. There's actually Raider news every day, guys. The teams that lose have news too. Yep. So make sure to check us out, and obviously check these guys out too. I've enjoyed coming on with you guys anytime during the season. I am always down to talk, not just
We'd love to have you on. We're going to be doing some pick'ems during the season. Maybe we'll have you on for a pick'em, picking some weeks in football.
Okay, sounds good. Take care.
You too, Chase. For everyone in Onside, Kick Nation, VP Sports Nation, I want to wish you guys the best day, and go Raider Nation.